I'm going to show you guys how to make the basic eye, and just kind of my way. So I'm just going to start out with our add point tool, and you can make the eye any shape that you want. I'm just using this so I can get a particular shape, but make your eyeball any shape that you want. I'm making it this shape. Cool. And you notice my auto weld is not on, so I'll undo that last bit, turn on auto weld, and now this will click into place. I'm going to use the curvature tool here and sharpen this curve here. These are a little bit large, so I'm just going to move these around here to get a more realistic shape. And this is just an outline. There is no fill or anything in this yet. However, to do this method, you do need to put fill, include a fill on this shape. So I'm going to go to this create shape tool, click here, make sure that we do have both selected for fill and stroke, and we create the shape. Right now it's white. It doesn't matter what color it is because this will actually be removed later. We can add any kind of details to this if we want. We can add that later, but for now let's just use this. This is on layer 1. We're now going to make another layer on top of that, another vector. This one will be called, let's go with iris, and we will now create a shape, more than likely, you know, a circle here. And this is going to be like the colored part of the eye, so I'm just going to do like so. It's on its own layer, so you know, you can move it around without worrying about affecting anything else. This I do want to select the whole thing like so, make sure that it's got a fill and a stroke, but we're going to make this either a particular color, and we can do this the simple way or the difficult way. So you could fill this in with a color. I've just picked any color, or we can do something cool and come over here to our effects and select gradient, and we go right here to the type and select radial, and then we can have a radial gradient. You can select how much that is spread out here. I like to kind of do like this, so we have this limbus, is what this is called, area there. We can take our color and now select a more appropriate color, like, oh, I don't know, something a little bit more brown, probably, like, well, that's too yellow, but you get the idea, more of a brown like so. And then I'm going to add a third color by just clicking here, making another one, double clicking on that little guy, and make this a bit yellower toward the middle. And by the way, if you want to get rid of any of these, if you make too many, just click once on it and press the delete key. Very simple. So now we've got this happening, so we just say OK. It'll look like this because you've got it selected as a shape. Just click away from it and you'll be able to see it. You can adjust your gradient right here if you like, and the center of the gradient, but I'm not going to move that, but this one looks fine here. Now we're going to come down and make another vector layer on top of that one, and we're going to make this one the pupil. And this will seem kind of weird because right now none of this is blocked or anything. You'll see what I mean in a second. But the pupil will be another circle here. We can just draw it. Now granted, it's going to look like this just because we still have our gradient turned on. So you can't just come over here and turn it off because it's not selected the way the shape isn't selected. So we need to select the shape, then come up here and turn gradient to plane. And then we can come in here now. We can turn off stroke because it's just going to be a color. And then on fill, we can click on it and bring it all the way to black. And now we have a black gradient, or a black pupil, that we just stick kind of right in the center of the eye there. You can do any kind of detailing on your iris layer, whatever that you want to do here. All of this, you know, will move together in a bit, but I just wanted to show you the basics. So we've got this basic eye. On the top of that, I also like to put another vector layer, and we'll call this highlight. And this is just going to be an idea of a highlight. So if we just use our add point tool and just draw kind of a blob over here, for the most part, and you can come in and change that or sharpen that or whatever you feel like doing to make that more realistic. That will be up to you depending upon what it's for. And then we want to fill that shape in right here with the create shape tool. Click it on the line and click create shape. Go ahead and select the shape tool here, take off stroke, and then on fill you want to click right here on the color and make that probably white or some, to something of that effect. And that looks all right, except for when we click over here, it's going to be like so, which was fine. However, I think the white of the eye is definitely too white. So what I want to do is go back down here. This is just literally revealing the background. We have no actual layer here. So what we want to do is also create a background, an eyeball layer. That's one thing that we should have done. And down here where it says layer 1, I'm going to rename that to eye. And right above it, we're going to add one more layer. And it's going to seem weird that I'm doing this above it, but this is how you have to set it up. This one's going to be eyeball. And this is going to be essentially the white part of the eye. So I'm just going to take a shape here, just another circle, and drag that out, or oval, and put it on like so. I'm going to turn off, I'm going to select the shape, turn off the stroke, and for the fill, probably going to go with a little bit of a grayer or even a yellowish kind of color, yellow gray, something like that. It just looks good when you do it this way. And that will be good there. Also, with that shape selected, I'm going to go ahead and put a gradient on it with a radial gradient. You can see what's happening here so far. And where it's black, I'm going to come in, double click that, and make it kind of a, not red, but a little bit of a rosy kind of color. And then I'm going to sort of make the middle stronger than the outside edges, just about there. Okay, so this will make sense in a minute. Because we have all this on top of our eye, the cutout that I made. Now what I'm going to do is just select all of these, but you want to start by clicking the eye first, and you don't have to click these other ones yet. We can just drop them in later, but for the moment I think I am going to try to do it this way. Once they're all selected from bottom up, you right click. Make sure you right click on the inside between this arrow and this word, and then we go group with selection. On here in the upper level of that, the group name, we're going to put I, and this could be I right. Okay, and then we're going to double click between this little arrow and the name and go to masking, and we're going to say hide all, and we'll put apply and say okay. You see what happens? It masked everything below it. Now on I, if we want to have these outer lines back, we're going to double click on it, go to masking, and turn on exclude strokes. And we'll click apply, okay, and that's all good to go. Now for anything else you want to do, just come in here, let's say on top of, well, let's go on top of everything but the highlight. Right here on, if you select this down arrow, it's going to open this. You don't want to do that. So if we just want to select the layer, click somewhere to the left of that little arrow. We're going to add another vector layer, and we're going to call this eye shadow, not the makeup, but the shadow on the eyeball itself. Now you don't have to do this, but this just looks good, and it's real simple, so why not? And we're just going to create kind of an arbitrary, not arbitrary, but you know what I mean, a little bit of a general shape. And I made one mistake, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. You notice this will not create a complete shape because we accidentally left that open. Just grab your move point tool there and drop it back over. And if you have auto weld turned on, that will weld itself back together. Okay, now this, because it's inside of this folder, will get masked by the mask that is surrounding everything. So we're going to create a shape. We're going to select that shape there. We're going to say create shape. It will not be the correct color. So go back and select your select shape tool. You can see now that it's masked. We're going to turn off the stroke, and in the fill color, we're going to grab that and just make this kind of a grayish color, I guess. And you can get pretty dark with it, because what we're going to do is pull down the alpha a little bit. And when we say OK, we have this sort of shade happening here. If I click on my select points tool and just click away, you can see what's happening, but we don't have the darkness that we want. That's probably because the alpha is still a little too light. There are different blending modes that you can use, though, to fix any of that. So let's go back to the color of that and turn our alpha back up. We'll just say OK. That didn't work because we still need to select the shape like that with the select shape tool. Then we can click it here or here, and we can make that darker. We can make it have less alpha. We can say OK. That will become darker. But this particular shape, we do not want the gradient on. So I'm going to say plain. Okay. And then we're going to click off of here completely. And that's where we're at right now. So another thing we can do too, if you want to get fancy, is to make this have a soft edge. So if we click on the select shape tool, select that area again, drop down here to soft edge, it will make this soft like so. And if we back that off to, say, about there, that looks pretty good. If this is too wide of a shape, which I believe it is, we can then come in with our points tool here and just sort of drag this out to where it's thinner on the edges a little bit. I think that looks a little more realistic. Do a little bit less of a width here on it. That'll look better. I think our highlight's a little huge, so we can just come in here with our points tool again and sort of make that quite a bit smaller. And I think that'll look better. There you go. And if you want to come in here and detail this iris, you just come down here and select the iris layer, add a new layer above it is what I would suggest doing. And we'll go iris detail. I would just use some black or some dark brown. You can use the pen tool here. I'm not drawing on my screen, so this will probably look pretty horrible, but you get the idea. You can do lines and whatnot. Let's go ahead and do this the right way, however, and or at least the better looking way when using a mouse. I'm going to do 3 points on each one of these, and this is just to get it laid out like so. I'm just doing kind of my 4 cardinal points here so that I know it's relatively even as far as spreading out these lines. This will take a little bit of time. It's a little bit tedious, but totally worth it. You'll see what I mean. And you don't have to get crazy with it because it is a cartoon. This detail is only as it would be as for if you had the camera close up to the character, in my opinion. So just kind of spread these out like so. You notice how we did the 4 corners first and then split in between those, and then I'm splitting in between those. And essentially you'll get what we've got here. Move the points around as necessary. You don't have to worry about this too much. And then you want to select, using this create shape tool, each one of these. Be careful to only select the lines because it will select the entire eyeball if you're not careful. And then you'll have to start selecting from the beginning again, which we might have to do here because it is easy to kind of select the wrong thing. Be careful about that. And once I get all these selected, I will be able to click on the create shape button, which is only going to create a stroke. We're going to select stroke there and click create shape. So now we have these strokes, and you can come in here with your line width tool now and make them skinny at the edges or the ends. Just narrow the points like so. And you can do that from the external points and the internal points. And I'm grabbing these and moving them to the left. It's kind of not completely intuitive. You want to kind of grab them and move them away, but that would actually make them bigger. Move them to the left, and then these to the left also, like so. And, you know, just have some coffee, think about birds in the trees or whatever while you're doing this. That's what I'm doing, of course. Well, definitely the coffee. And then you want to grab the middle ones and probably just fatten those up a little bit. Like so. Takes up more of the blank space, gives it the line a little more variation. You can also use more lines than this if you want to, but then you're getting super detailed. But the cool thing is, it doesn't matter. You don't have to move all these detail pieces when you animate the eye. They will just move with it, which is very handy. All right, so let's go to the outside of our eye just for the heck of it here, because we're going to animate this really simply here in a second, and you'll be like blown away by that. And just right here on the outside where the eye ring is, we're going to create another layer, and we're going to tell it though that we don't want to mask this layer because then it will disappear, you know, when we use it, if it's inside this mask folder. So let's go ahead and pull that down, leave it inside. I think it keeps taking it out though, but there we go, it's inside. We're going to call this eyelash. And now we can just draw, and you could do this various ways, but the simplest way is going to be just to draw a couple of lines. We're only going to put 2 or 3 of these on here. Give you the idea of what it's for. I'm totally messing this up. All right, so like so, like so, like so. All these can be moved and sized and done better. And there we go. You get the idea, I hope. Okay, so on to the more important stuff here in just a second. We're going to make these, we're going to create these as shapes by selecting them all. I am holding down Shift to select these. And then we go to create shape. It's just going to create a stroke for those. But you notice they're not coming up. That's because they're being masked. So we need to double click on this eyelash layer, go to masking, and say, don't mask this layer. Apply, OK, and now we're good to go. So we want to use our line width tool and come in and change the width of the base of these guys. Make those thicker. And then the ends thinner, and it will look essentially like an eyelash. We could do some interesting stuff just on the outside of this as well, which I highly recommend. So above the actual eye group folder here, I'm going to add another vector layer. This is going to be our eye wrinkles. Just for the heck of it, we're just going to add 1 or 2. So we're just going to do something like this, like so, and add kind of a eye bag kind of wrinkle here at the bottom. And then we're going to go in and select those with our create shape tool, the 2 of those, and we're going to create shape. Those will be all black. I recommend doing something like brown, so you can select this shape here. We have the stroke applied, so we want to select the color of the stroke. Come in here and make like a, I don't know, a brownish color. And there's that, and then we can adjust these points to be, you know, a little bigger there, a little smaller at the ends, like so. And maybe the same thing kind of through there. Maybe there, make the ends smaller. And there we go, okay? There's your basic eye. Now to get this to animate, and this is something else I like to do, is right here on this eye layer, this is your set origin tool. I'm just gonna click this right in the center just so everything is laid out good. You can come through here, every single part, and just kind of click it to the center of each part, if you will. And it just keeps things organized when you start looking at your layers. And also, if you were to pivot anything or move it, it was going to use that particular point as the center of that particular layer. So keep that in mind when animating. So I'm just going to put these eyelashes over there. All right, cool. So on this, okay, I accidentally clicked that little arrow. This is our eye here. So what we want to do is we want to animate this, and the best way to do that is with a smart bone dial. So all right, so what we've got here, we're going to drag this eye wrinkles layer into our eye folder, and they're going to disappear. But remember, we have to double click on them, go to masking, and tell it not to mask that layer. We'll click apply and OK. We're going to go up to the eye layer here. Now, normally you wouldn't do this with just your eye layer. You would use your head layer, your character group, or whatever. But you're going to right click on this, and we're going to convert this to a bone layer. So now we can add bones to this overall group. And what do we want to do first is come over here to this add bone tool. This is going to be for eye blinking, and I'm just going to make a click and drag and make a bone right here that goes up. We're going to change the name of this to eye blink. Press enter, and then with that bone selected, we're going to go to bone, make smart bone dial, and then it's called eye blink, so you know you did it right. -90 to +90. It's going to make two separate actions, and you'll see you'll want this to make it blink and to make it wide. So we're going to go from a -90 to a +90, so all the way to the left, all the way to the right, over a duration of 100 frames. We're going to say OK. It's going to drop you into this. When you see the timeline is blue, you're inside that action. Right now you're on frame 0 where everything is set up. As we go forward, you see I'm dragging through the timeline. It's going to move our bone. Basically, it's saying when it goes down to the left all the way here to a frame 100 where you see these dots, it's going to do whatever we make it do here. So we're going to go down now to the layer for the eye, and we're going to grab our transform points tool, and we're going to start dragging some points around. So we're going to close this up a little bit from the bottom like so. Don't go too crazy just yet, and we're going to just kind of lift those up a little, and then from the top these are going to pretty much come down all the way as they would. Now what's cool, it's not animating just the transforming points, it will animate the curve and everything that you set for this. So you'll see what I mean. We go here like that, just making sure we're not overlapping too badly. And if you were to take the curvature tool and adjust some of this, that actually will be included in your animation when all this is said and done. So we can come in here and get that more sealed up. So there's the blink of the actual eye. And if you can test this by just running your timeline back. Now it looks a little weird halfway through, so about right here, I'm going to grab this top point now and pull that up slightly to where it stays more curved, and see it creates a keyframe halfway through. So as that comes down now, looks a little weird there, so I'm just going to pull that a little better, and it keeps that keyframe. So you can control how it blinks all the way through the actual action. So as we get down here now, we're going to need to move these eyelashes. So I click on the eyelash layer, of course, and then we can grab those points, and you can always lasso those things, move them like you would move a layer right into there, rotate them, whatever you want to do. And like I said, you can go back and double check all this animation by moving your timeline playhead back and forth. But remember, don't set it somewhere here unless you plan on to do animation there or have it in the beginning, because then you'll change where it starts. Always put it on the frame you want to change and then change it there. I've made that mistake one too many times. Alright, so I'm going to grab all of these now together, which you can do, and we're going to rotate them all like so. Hopefully this will work. If not though, the nice thing is it's easy to fix, and I can go back and adjust those points individually as well. So halfway through now you can see it's not bad, but about halfway through not liking how that point's sitting. So I'm just going to click off of everything, grab the point tool there, and just readjust a couple of these to feel a little bit better. And you can see that works much better now. Cool. So there's the eye blink there. Not only that, we have these two wrinkles, top and bottom. They would look much more natural if that flesh around them was moving just the same. I'll just adjust that one a little bit more. So we can go to our, we didn't rename it, we just called it layer 2, but this is going to be our eye wrinkle layer. And we can adjust some of those points now too, to where they sort of relax a little bit as the eye closes. The bag can come up a little bit too, I guess. Something like that. So now you can see when it closes, we have this overall kind of natural blinking look to it. So that's how to get the eye to blink. So we don't have the widen set yet. That's action number 2, which is going to be right over here on eye blink number 2. Don't forget about it. So we're going to double click it now. Now we're inside of eye blink 2's action, which is going to go to the right. So as we drag the timeline up to frame 100 again, you can see that that goes all the way to the right. And now we can make the eye wider by moving the respective parts for doing that. So we'll just push this up some, this out some, maybe even that guy a little bit, just to give it a little bit of action there. We're going to pull this down somewhat like so, maybe like that, and you can see the outside is already working. And then we can go in, of course, to our actual eye layer where all the good stuff is, and just sort of stretch open the eyeball even more than it already is. Probably should have started with the eyelashes, but that's okay. I don't want to get too crazy here, but you see how that can work. So eye widening. Okay, awesome. And now we need to go to our eyelashes and make sure all of these guys are moved appropriately as well. So I'm just going to grab all those, angle this more correctly, and hopefully drag them over to where they belong. And then the bottom ones, just circle around them, grab those and move those to where they're more appropriately placed. And now you can see they widen as we widen the eye. So to get out of all this business, you just come back over here and where it says main line, you double click right there, and it takes you back to the normal timeline. Now nothing will happen here until you move this bone. So I'm gonna just click on the bone layer of the eye, because you have to do that, and then grab this particular manipulate bones tool, and now we can move this left or right to close and widen the eye. And then make sure you're on frame 0 for all of this kind of stuff, because this is where the setup happens. Okay, so now we need to make another bone to control the up, down, and left, right of the eye. We're going to do 2 separate bones for that. So make sure this bone is not selected. We're going to click here and click off of it. Otherwise, when we made our next bone, it would be parented to this bone, and you get all kinds of chaos that way. Starting over on a little part here, I just messed something up, but all I did was I took these 3 layers here, the pupil, the iris detail, and the iris, and I grouped them together into a folder called iris. You just select all 3, right click, and you select group with selection, this one here, and it puts it in this folder called iris, just like when we made the main eye up here. So on this layer, this is the one that we want to give an action to. So we're going to wind up creating a bone for that particular collection of stuff. But back here on the bone layer, we're going to create a new bone. We're going to put it right down here. This one's going to be called IL/R, and that's what it's called now. And we're going to, with that one selected, we're going to say bone, make smart bone dial. And that's all good. Remember, over 100 frames, -90 to +90, and separate actions for positive and negative angles. So we say OK, and there we go. Now we want to make sure that when we move forward, the bone goes to the left, which means that all the stuff in the eye we want to go to left. We're going to select the iris layer, and we're going to take that layer and move it to the left as far as we can go without it looking ridiculous. That's about right. So now you can see that when that bone moves, it's going to move that one to the left. We want to go to ILR2, double click it, move up here to a frame 100, and the bone's going to drop to the right. And now we want to take that same layer and move it to the right. So now that it will do this. And we click up here on main line again, double click, and we're back in our standard timeline. If we go now to our bone layer, right here at the top, and click on our manipulate bones tool, we can drag these to blink and widen, and we can drag this one to go left and right. Okay, now we might have wanted to move the eyeball layer a bit, so you see that rose color come in more or not. That is another possibility, and a way we can fix that if we want is to just go back into one of these actions, eye left and right, double click it. When we come back up to the keyframe where it's pushed completely over, we can come down here to our eyeball layer if we want, and we can adjust a few things. Either you can adjust where your, I believe, where your gradient is sitting, or we can just pull the whole eyeball over. Actually, we can't do that. We can possibly, move the whole eyeball layer over like so, and then we can pull this out. So now we will have the eyeball looking like it's moving, but I think I pulled that over a little too far. So we'll just grab that layer and pull it back a little bit, but we just want that red to creep in a little more than it was, like so. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then back on the second one, we'll double click on it moving to the right, and once we're up in frame 100 again, we can pull that layer over a little, and then we can of course adjust this point at the end to not have any issues there. And now it will do the same, go in the other direction. Be a little bit more realistic. So now we click back on the main line. We're going to want to make the same type of a bone that makes it go up and down. This is very simple. So make sure you click off of this bone by clicking on our bone layer, clicking on the select bone tool up here in the left, and making sure you click in a blank space so nothing is highlighted. We're going to add another bone by clicking the add bone tool right here and just click and drag up. These don't have to be as big as I'm making them. This is just for the presentation here, but you can make them smaller. They still work the same. So IU/D, so that's for up down. And now with that bone selected, we go to bone, make smart bone dial, and all of this is normal, left and right, 90 degrees, 100 frames, good. And we're going to come up here, and this is going to be the down. The left is, to me, always down. So we're going to select our iris layer again here. We're going to take the layer itself, and we're just going to pull it down like that. You can go a little more if you want to. And that looks perfectly fine to me. Not going to worry about the red on top to bottom. I think that's totally fine. And then we double click on the eye up down 2. We're going to pull that up to 100 frames. You see our bone dropping to the right now. And once we get to 100 frames, we just move this up. So now it will move up and down. It's moving a little bit slanted to the left, I think. So I'm just going to get this on a frame 100 and move it a little more to the right. I think that's close enough. Maybe I went a little far. Okay, good enough. So we're going to double click on main line to get back. And now our eye is pretty much completely set up. You could change the scale of the pupil as well if you wanted to. Let's go ahead and do it. I mentioned it. Why not do it? All right, so we're going to make sure all of our bones are clicked off by selecting the tool, clicking in a blank spot. We're going to now click on back on our bone layer for our eye, because that's where bones are added. And we're going to add a bone, and we're going to go straight up from here. We're going to call this dilate. Perfect. And then we're going to go here with that bone selected. Bone, make smart bone dial. That is fine because we can go big or small now. We're going to say OK. Now this one's a little bit more tedious. So we're going to come up here to frame 100. You see it drops to the left. And this is going to make it smaller. So we're going to take the layer of the pupil only, and we're going to zoom in, and we're going to make that pretty small. Now we need to make all of these other lines extend, so we're going to click on the iris detail, and I'm just going to move the inner points like this. And those will be fine. You could move the middles as well, but this is just a little faster for the video here. It'll give you the same idea though. I'm just going to extend those in. So now it looks like that contracts. Okay, so now dilate 2. We're going to do the exact opposite. So I'm going to grab the pupil layer. We're going to just grab the layer over here by selecting the layer button, and we're going to make that pretty big. And then we're going to go to iris detail, and now we can just select these, yes, one at a time, and pull these out kind of like so. You can be more or less perfect or detailed or whatever you would like. This is just for the purposes of the video. And once you get those all done, you can test your animation. Now look what I've done. I've accidentally done this on frame 1. And you would normally think, oh great, well that screws it up because it's just a snap, you know, the second it gets on there. Just grab the frame and move it over to a frame 100 and stop your whining. All right, here we go, boom, and right there. Now it will smoothly transition those, but then we need to go back and do the same for the pupil. And just grab its frame here and move it up to frame 100, make sure that it's on there, and now everything will dilate as well. So when we double click on the main line again to go back, you now have all of these awesome controls for all of your stuff. And we can click on our bone layer here, and we can click on a manipulate bones tool. We can dilate and contract the eyeball. We can move, widen and blink the eye. We can move the eye left or right, and guess what? Still contracts and dilates. We can move it up and down. We can actually make an entire circle if we were to animate this way. So that is pretty much how you make a realistic eye in Moho. Thanks for watching, guys.